Hey, what's going on? It's Joey Myers from the Lead Generation SEO Services.com website and the Lead Generation Strategies podcast. I wanted to go over in this video a little bit of our Genesis story, and really the theme of our Genesis story started with content and ended with content. And I'll tell you why. So for those of you that don't know already, I'm a big baseball fan, softball fan. I spent a lot of my life training people, training young athletes. And going back to the early days of Joey Myers and that baseball fuel and inspiration that got me going to play in college in Division I, Fresno State, started off with the Don Mattingly baseball card. Then followed with a Mark McGwire baseball card. My favorite color was green. Mark McGwire was on the A's, so I liked the A's. I got to see in those formidable A's years, 88, 89, and 90, even though they lost 2 out of those 3 World Series, it was fun to watch the Bash brothers after they'd hit a home run, and either Canseco or McGwire would come and touch home plate, and then they'd bash each other with their big, giant forearms. And those were the stages of me wanting to get better at that sport. And I didn't have parents that were into the sports per se. My mom was a cheerleader and a softball player in high school, but she never really pushed me into, you have to do this better, you have to do that better. It was always just more supportive and loving and caring. It was, let's sign you up. And then she'd wind me up and let me go. My dad was a self-proclaimed nerd. In high school, back in school, had the pocket protector and everything, loved to race cars, drag race, and just loved cars in general. He's a military guy, spent about 40 years in the Air Guard and the Air Force, spent a year in Vietnam off the coast of Cam Bay. And then after he retired out of the Air Force, Air Guard, he worked 10 years as a civilian with the Army Guard. So I got a lot of discipline, good discipline, that bred the self-discipline in me. But the nice thing was that they didn't push me. And I was lucky that I had enough great experiences in the baseball world that it really got me to crave wanting to get better. And that was about when the content when I learned that better content can up your game and can up your performance. I started seeing a hitting coach my 5th grade year, had a pretty decent year that year. And I can't remember if I hit a home run or not. I might have hit 2 or 3 of them that year, or maybe came close. But it wasn't until that sixth grade year, when I was 12 years old, I had figured in my own head that, hey, if this content with the hitting coach is working, maybe more content is better. So that day and age, for those that aren't old enough to remember, we didn't have the internet, and we had bookstores. So there was a hole-in-the-wall bookstore. I found this dog-eared, yellowing cover hitting book by Jim Lefebvre called The Making of a Hitter. That book changed the trajectory of my life in so many ways, in so many different types of industries, that experience was what started to mold my thirst for content and to constantly improve. That book changed my life. And a couple DVDs later, not from Jim Lefebvre, but others, that 6th grade year was unbelievable. Was what I call a video game season. Hit 880 in my league, which the league wasn't very good, but still 880 is 880. Had probably about 13, 14 homers, over the fence homers. And it was about 200 feet at that time. I was a little taller. I wasn't super tall. I'm 5'10" now, but I was probably about 5'8" or 4'8", 5 foot, 5'3", somewhere around there. So I wasn't small, but I wasn't huge. And I think I got out 4 times, 3 strikeouts and 1 pop-up. I can still remember it. In All-Stars, when we played even better teams, I hit 770 with another 14 homers. So I was ignorance on fire, although the Jim Lefebvre book, The Making of a Hitter, did start that path. The problem I ran into was going from Little League pitching distance. It was about 45, 46 feet to 60 feet, 6 inches is the big field. So for those of you who go to baseball games, that's what from the pitcher's mound to home plate is 60 foot, 6 inches. That started to create a problem for me. I was swinging and missing. I was out in front. It was mostly timing. Thinking back now, it would just been a couple timing fixes we would have done if I was working with myself. You know, as being 40 years old, 41 years old as I am now, it would have been an easy fix. But what I thought was all mechanical. So I started digging into other books. I started reading Ted Williams' book, The Science of Hitting, and Tony Gwynn's book, and Mike Schmidt's book, and Charlie Lau's book. And as you can imagine, all those different greats, Hall of Famers in most cases, they had different views on how the swing was supposed to be. And at that time, I had no other choice. I didn't think about the science side. I didn't know about engineering. I didn't know about physics. Kind of did. There was a book on physics, baseball, that I picked up and read, but you know, I thought it was just beyond me. I couldn't figure that out. Couldn't wrap my head around it. So I was dependent on some of the greats. I said, well, shoot, they're really good. They got to figure. You figure that they know what they're doing. For 4 years, I ruined my swing for 4 years. It wasn't until the summer after my sophomore year in high school that I finally said, you know what? I'm done with all the information. I'm done with reading more books on it. I'm done. I'm just going to do what I feel is going to work. So that's when I ended up my sophomore year. I played varsity. I played every game on varsity. Hit about 250, which is really nothing. But hey, what am I complaining? I got to play the whole season. And into my junior, senior years, where I finally made that cut from the type of content that I was consuming, I ended up hitting 400, 398 both years, had a couple homers, a lot of doubles. We played in a big park. It was like 410 to center field, 410 to center field, and 330 down the lines. It was a pretty big park. And again, I wasn't a big guy, 5'10", 5'9", or so. But I learned my lesson at that time that you have to be careful with your content source. And when you're doing your research and you're looking for different things that are going to give you an edge, you have to be careful with who you're going after. Sometimes it's how you study and what you study that's going to count. So that was my first indication of content and figuring out, okay, what is good content versus bad content. Not saying that Ted Williams is bad content or Mike Schmidt, they were bad content. It was the fact that I had all of them in my ear telling me what to do, and they all had different ways of doing things instead of just taking one and just perfecting one. I might have had a better success in that. So fast forward after college. So I graduated with a criminology degree with a law enforcement option, which I don't know why I did that. I wanted to be a forensic CSI, FBI agent, CIA, whatever. That it didn't ended up panning out where I'm at now. But my wife and I, after we graduated college, or pretty much graduated, I think I had my 6-month internship to finish, we studied abroad. We were dating at the time, and we went to Turin, Italy, and studied for a semester, 4.5 months or so. This is the first time both of us, I think she had been to Mexico on her senior trip. I hadn't been out of California ever. And that was a wake-up call, a culture shock for sure. Being in a country where they have a 2-hour siesta, they call it, where you go eat lunch for an hour and you take a nap for an hour, which I loved, by the way. And I do a little bit of that here, maybe not that long. But there were some interesting things over there that we learned being outside the USA bubble. We learned also that not all people outside of America like Americans. We learned that. This was early 2000s and the Gulf War and Iraq and all that kind of stuff. So we learned some interesting things over there. When we got back, we had a great experience, and we got to travel 8 different countries, 7 or 8 different countries. And the reason we picked Italy was because geographically located, it was perfect. One of our other choices was Australia, but it was a frickin' island, and we were only confined to what was around that island, like New Zealand and New Guinea and different other islands. So we decided on Italy. We got back. I got the bug for online digital marketing, and I started a study abroad website called savvystudyabroad.com. You can go on the Wayback Machine. It's not there. I tried looking. I started that and did a little report on what we'd learned and how to help people out and keeping their money from getting stolen when you're coming off the bus or the train in Rome, Italy, or Napoli. and just little things like that, and how to venture around and being careful and what you got to try and all that kind of stuff. And so I did a little ebook. And at that time, again, we're talking 2000. So 2004 was when we studied abroad. 2004, that was the spring. So that year, that fall, I was going to work right on that book. So I did that for a couple years. 2008, and I was doing a couple other things. I was selling stuff on eBay and selling books on Amazon, and kind of get my feet wet in the e-com side of things too. 2008, my college, Fresno State, that I graduated from, played 4 years of baseball at, they ended up getting to the College World Series and winning the College World Series. That same year is when I started Swing Smarter, baseballhittingdrills.com. And you can go on Wayback Machine for that. I started that, and that was based off a Site Build It platform, sitebuildit.com or Site Build It. I don't know. You probably search it. I think they're still around. Their whole system is based off of content and SEO. On-page SEO was highly weighted, and then there were some link building stuff too that they were doing. So I started to get my feet wet into the SEO side of things and did very well for at least a startup. In a really teeny niche, we had ended up getting around 3,500 emails from just search engine optimization. And I built that little list and ended up rebranding because I figured out that I read a book, stumbled upon a book by Thomas Myers. The book's called Anatomy Trains, and I'm sure we're related somewhere on the family tree, but I don't know Tom Myers as of now. But again, we're related somehow. Stumbled on his book about body work and fascia and spinal engine stuff and things like that. And I was trying to just fix some things in my own body. And it dawned on me that, wait a minute, I can actually reverse engineer the swing based off of real science. So body work, biomechanics, physics, engineering. So I started diving in to that kind of stuff. And that's when we had our first kid, Noah, who's 9 now. So that was 9 years ago. And really dove into that and was able to reverse engineer the swing. So aha moment number 2 on the content was, okay, content is good where you're getting your improvement to be able to, your edge on your competitors. The type of information matters. And that's where I learned that. And that's where Hitting Performance Lab was born. So we rebranded. The old site, swingsmarter.com, there was just too much content on there to change up. So I just decided to rebrand. I hired a online digital marketing coach. He was a friend of mine from high school, did very, very well for himself, became a millionaire in his early 20s, moved out to Texas, and started doing the newsletter thing, like just crazy. So he coached me for about 6 months, and we did this whole thing. We started some online courses and things like that. And so I started to drift away from the SEO thing, and I started to go into more of the Facebook ads. I got into the Facebook, digitalmarketer.com, Facebook ads, email marketing, all that kind of stuff, kind of tried to take it up a notch and started to do Facebook ads, building sales funnels, and that, and along with the email marketing. And we grew that 3,500 list that got pretty stale. We'd add one, lose one. We grew that first year, I think, to about 15,000 emails. The next year, we added another 20 to 30,000. And then the next year, another 20 to 30,000. So over the length of about 4 or 5 years, we collected probably about 100,000 emails or so in that length of time. A lot of unsubscribes. We had emails. One of the mistakes I made was the person gives their email, they get the pop-up, they get the video that I promised them, instead of saying that I was going to email them the video, so that they gave me a legit email or a semi-legit email. So I had to do a lot of list hygiene. So we're down around 35,000 now from then. But I mean, a ton of emails from a lot of what we were doing. So we learned, again, that the right information at the right time really, really matters. Then we went into self-publishing and was able to publish a book with the direction and guidance at digitalmarketer.com, Ryan Deiss, and learned how to develop a Amazon bestseller in the baseball coaching niche in a year. So January 2018, it was a national Amazon bestseller in that niche. And we got over 200, if you take both the first and second editions, over 200 plus positive book reviews with an average star rating of 4.4. Pretty dang good. So we did pretty well there. So then when we have some issues with Facebook and now it's not growing organically as much, my pages and things like that, it was more a pay to play. Well, over time, your ads start to tire out and you either got to add more products or whatnot. And when you stop advertising on Facebook and Google PPC and YouTube, as you probably know, for those of you who have done that, your leads dry up, they stop. So then what do? That's what brought me back full circle to search engine optimization and content management. Content is key. And what happens is SEO and showing up on the first page of Google in organic search, and for you local businesses in that little 3-map pack, what it is it's evergreen marketing for years. So even if you stop spending money on SEO, paying somebody to do it, you're still going to have that evergreen marketing. And our goal is not only to get one result on page one, but to get multiple results on page one organically. And we can have that in many different platforms. We could have that in a blog post, in a news, like press release type of thing. We could have it in a podcast. We can have it in a video. We can have it in a slide share, infographic. We can have it in multiple different platforms. And we can feasibly have 6 to 8 different search results from certain keywords on page one of Google. Could you imagine how that could change? I mean, you're eliminating, say if you got 6 spots on the first page of Google, you're eliminating 5 other spots that a competitor could be on there. You're taking up that space. So SEO has really come around and become a much more powerful engine for content, delivering content to people, the right kind of content at the right time. And for your business, that could be that person searching for your services, your product. That could be you. You're the right content or product or service at the right time. So I hope telling my story, my Genesis story, helps a little bit. If you got any questions, please let me know. Reach out if you wanted to look into the SEO strategies that we're using. They're working. We use them on our own business. We take our own medicine. We aren't just an agency that just does agency stuff. We have our own assets. We have our own businesses, our own websites that we run this stuff on as well. And we only do what works. So anyway, thanks for listening to this story and the ups and downs of it. But I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next video.